Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 919 College Football Podcast. I know Beau and I are thrilled to be back on the airwaves, and thank you all for tuning in. My name is Daniel Adams. I'm coming to you live from the 910, the Port City. Beau is a City of Oaks native and is up
City of Oaks.
919, where we both hail from and where the name of this podcast comes from. So, Beau, give a quick shout out to the crew.
Yeah, coming at you from Raleigh, North Carolina. Excited to get season 4 of our podcast. Is it season 4 of our podcast of our humble, our small but humble, but big in our hearts podcast that we have?
It is hard to believe it's season 4. We're getting old, man.
I know we are. We were just little boys when we started this. But excited to finally get the college football season started. I don't know about you, but I feel like the finish to college football season and the start of college football season feels like the most time off between any sort of sport that I'm looking forward to. And maybe because it might be what I look forward to most when it comes to a season starting. Yeah. And it just feels longer because college football, there's really nothing like it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And last year, we still got our fix, but of course it was a different season. There were a lot of things to worry about. It was like, was your team even going to play? Was there going to be a COVID cancellation? Were your best players going to be sitting out with COVID? Mm-hmm. No fans in the stands, which is part of what makes college great, is the pomp and circumstance around the games. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into college football season as we know it. And 2020 was such a weird year, so I'm really looking forward to getting back into it.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm looking forward to most, being able to get back to games, fans being in the stands, whether they should be or not. It seems like they're going to push forward. They're full steam ahead on fans there, which is great, and it's going to make for a better college football season overall, and better sport atmosphere. It just makes it so much better. It's all part of the experience. It's really not even about the games, really. It's just about, going to games, having a good time with friends, family, and just hanging out and being a part of an environment that everyone's there to celebrate and have fun.
That's right. But I know you're going to Blacksburg on Friday night, but I assume you're going to most, if not all, of the Carolina home games.
Yeah, all the Carolina home games when I can. There seems to be a couple of conflicts that I'm seeing on the horizon, but hopefully I'm able to go to as many as possible. And going to the away game in Blacksburg this upcoming Friday. We're recording this on a Wednesday night and releasing it hopefully before Friday.
That's right. Yeah, we'll have to our producer to get that stuff all ironed out. We're not the technical experts. So, yeah, do you want to jump right in, Beau? You feeling ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Spend some time. Yeah, looking back. So looking forward, there's so many places to start. Where do you want to start, Beau? I'll let you guide this
first. We just mentioned the fans back in the stands, which is, I think, everyone's looking forward to. But for me, other than that, when it comes to on the field, I'm looking most forward to the reaction of Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12. When in a couple of years, or however many years it will be, I think that's still up in the air. I think there's 5 years is what they said, but I don't think they want to stay there longer than they have to. So I think that opposing fan reaction to them leaving the Big 12, whenever they go to an away stadium or an away team, the away fans will definitely show their displeasure of those two teams, basically making the Big 12 irrelevant in college sports, in college football.
Yeah, I think that really seemed to come out of nowhere. I mean, there was a report, and then a week later, it seemed like it was an official deal. So
Mhm.
I've read and I've heard that if the Big 12 as a conference dissolves, or I think the number is if there's fewer than 8 teams and it's no longer a conference, then Oklahoma and Texas would get out of that contract that they have and wouldn't have to pay the buyout.
Mhm.
So, it puts the rest of the Big 12 in a weird situation. Do they need to start looking to add new schools, or do they need to start looking to move to the Big 10, move to the Pac-12, whatever it may be? So I think Texas and Oklahoma are praying that the conference dissolves and that they can get to the SEC as soon as possible. But yeah, I don't know if that's good for football, Bo, or if that's honestly bad for football. It's almost like there's too much power there's too much concentrated power. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I love the regional conference setup as it is right now, and I think when you start pulling in schools like Texas and Oklahoma, I mean the Big 12's got West Virginia. That certainly is not regional, but you just sort of lose some of the tradition of college football, which is one of the things that I know you and I love.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know me and you are both traditionalists when it down deep, and we don't like change. But no, I completely agree. I think in the long run, I think Americans tend to move on and don't, and will just, it's just a blip in the radar.
Yeah.
That's kind of just how Americans are. I feel like when it comes to sports, and it happens, it is in place, and then it moves, and we move on with with the new reality of things, and we're going to complain about it leading up to it, and then it is what it is. But I don't like it. I think it have a will shift power in college football. It's all about money. That's what it all boils down to. And now we're waiting to hear about the college football playoff expansion, which I hear when just listening to the radio and people more knowledgeable and in depth on it than I am, that it will probably go to a 12-team playoff, which opens the door for the SEC to have more than maybe 4 teams, and then also for the big or the group of 5 teams to be able to be a part of the college football playoff. A better chance for them, which I do think is good. I don't know if it's, again, tradition, even though we've had college football playoff for 7 years now. It's not. I kind of do like it. It gets more teams an opportunity to reach national prominence, I would say,
Yeah, but
instead of the same 5 teams we've been seeing for the past
yeah.
7 to 5 years.
Well, I think one thing, is that we American football fans in general are just burned out of seeing Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, on repeat in that college football playoff semifinal. So it will be nice to get to 12 teams. I would have been happy with 8. I think 12 is a good number too, because that will give an opportunity to some of the group of 5 teams. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Central Florida back in 2017 or 2018 when they had that undefeated run. And then even going back to the early to mid 2000s, like 06, 07, 08, when Texas Christian and Boise State were really good, it would have been fun to see them play against the Power 5 schools, for a national championship. So just like March Madness, it gives an opportunity for some of the smaller schools to upset the bigger schools. So
Yeah.
There's more money in it for the college football playoff, for college football. It seemed like it was just a matter of time, and honestly, I'm surprised it took this long, and nothing's set in stone yet. I don't know if it'll be next year, if it'll be 3 years from now, but I'm surprised that it took this long to expand.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad that the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, that people are making fun of this alliance that they've made, which is fine. I think what that alliance means is that they're happy with the teams that they have. They don't feel like they need to expand right now, which I agree with. I don't really know where you can go. You know, the ACC can grab Notre Dame if they wanted to. I mean, well, not if they wanted to. I know everyone would want to. If Notre Dame is willing to do that, if that's where they see benefits Notre Dame the most. But it just, these super conferences, I'm glad we're not going to see. Hopefully, or in the immediate future, we're not going to see it. So it's kind of funny. I compare it to the Super League, the soccer Super League that was made up a couple months ago, and it lasted approximately 24 hours because fans of those soccer teams absolutely flipped. They were protesting. They were storming stadiums when they weren't supposed to. I mean, they were saying how they're not going to go to the games. There will be empty stadiums if they do this, and it kind of reminds me of it. That was a conglomerate of the best teams or the richest teams in European soccer going to be in one league, which would completely destroy the competition setup that soccer has in Europe. And Super Leagues or super conferences in American college football reminded me of that, where it would have completely destroyed competition.
Yeah,
I think, and it would just been a miniature NFL.
It would become like a minor league.
Yeah. So I'm glad we're not going to see that for now, and we'll still have remnants of the college football we all know and love. But we're going to get into our predictions of the season a little later in the podcast towards the end. Now we are the 919 College Football Podcast, so we are going to get into a little preview of what we think about locally here at home, of the teams here around us at home. And we're going to start off with the Duke Blue Devils. Is that good with you, Daniel?
Yeah, it's funny, Beau. I was thinking we should start. I think last year we did what we projected as the best team starting with them, Carolina, then Duke. I think this year we should do reverse. Let's start with what we think will probably be the worst team and work our way up. So it'll probably be reverse order, but yeah,
we're gonna probably start with Duke a lot then in the next upcoming preview episodes.
So I think this is a turning point year for Duke. I was reading something in the Star News yesterday that Duke is the only school in the ACC that does not have a quarterback returning. I was really excited last year. I thought Chase Bryce, the transfer from Clemson, was going to be a great transfer. I thought he was going to come in and just fit the mold perfectly that David Cutcliffe has for good quarterbacks. And he was terrible. I mean,
he was awful
about it. He was terrible.
He was so bad.
Duke led the country in turnovers last year. And it was not just interceptions, it was fumbles. The offense just looked horrendous. So I think turning the page on that is a good thing. He has since transferred to App State. Beau and I are 919 boys, so we like App State. But I think it's a good way to turn the page. And I don't know that means that Duke is going to be better overall as a team, but their starting quarterback now is Gunnar Holmberg, who's actually a Heritage High School graduate. So shout out to the 919. He is
keeping it local.
Yeah. I think he's a fourth-year junior, so he's been in the system for a while. But, you always have questions about if you've been in the system that long and you're just now playing, what does that say about your talent level? So overall, I think we've got a good running back coming back, Mateo Durant. He was preseason All ACC, so I think we'll be able to run the ball okay. But, of course, if you can't pass the ball, then everyone just loads the box and Travis Etienne wouldn't pick up 100 yards a game if everybody's loaded the box. So I'm looking at their schedule now. Honestly, I don't see a bowl game this year. I think they probably did a good job of setting up the non-conference schedule with a couple of Power 5 games that are winnable in Northwestern and Kansas. Kansas at home, they should win that game. Northwestern also at home. I don't think they'll win. I think Northwestern will just overmatch them. A&M,
Uh-huh.
they ought to win. And honestly, I think Charlotte on the road, I think they'll lose that game on Friday night. I think they're going to be 2-2 in the non-conference. Going into the ACC schedule, starting off at Carolina, you never know what happens in rivalry games, but I don't see that being a win. And then so they've got Georgia Tech at home. That's
Right.
a potential conference win. At Virginia is a loss. At Wake Forest, I think will be a loss. Pitt at home, I think will be a loss. At Virginia Tech, I think will be a loss. Louisville at home, I think they could win that game, and then Miami at home is a loss. So I've got 4-8, Beau, and that's 2-6 in conference. So not, a somewhat bleak picture. If they do pull it off and beat Charlotte, they're looking at potentially 5-7. They'd need to sneak a win somewhere, maybe at Virginia or at Wake or potentially Pitt at home. But, there are winnable games on the schedule. I just don't see them winning, and I doubt they will be favored in any ACC game, frankly. What do you think?
I agree. I think they'd be happy with 4 wins. I think they would be disappointed not to beat Charlotte. And I see 3 non-conference wins. I think they do beat Charlotte. 3 non-conference wins, and then when it comes to conference, I see 1 or 2 wins. Versus Georgia Tech at home is almost if you need to get a win, that's where it is. Because I think at Virginia is hard, at Wake is difficult. I know you think they'll beat Louisville at home. I think if they get a second win, that's where it is.
Yeah.
So I think Georgia Tech and Louisville is their best chances for conference wins, putting them at 4 or 5 wins, which I think they'd be happy with. Duke fans would be. I don't know about David Cutcliffe. So say he does go 4 wins or below. Is David Cutcliffe on the hot seat going into next season?
I almost think he's already on the hot seat. Last year, they were so bad. I mean, it wasn't even – and the thing with turnovers is it almost leads you to believe that it's a coaching problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you should be able to control that a little bit more. There's a degree of luck that factors into turnovers, but if you're continually fumbling the ball and continually interceptions, then the coach should be doing something different to evaluate your skills, put you in better positions to be successful. So, if it's another year of just not looking better as a team, even if they're losing games, but if they're actually looking competitive and better, I think he could stick around. But, frankly, Duke has to make the tough decision of if they fire him, who do they hire, right? This is not a dream job. They're going to need to hire probably someone from a small school who maybe has been around for a while, or a coordinator from a mid-major or even high-major school that has just been around for a while but has not had the chance to get a head coaching job, because you're not going to get like a Joe Brady type to come and be the head coach at Duke. It's too tough of a position to advance your career. So it's a tough spot, I think, but we'll see, man. I pray for 6-6. I think 4-8 is probably the right number, but we'll see how it plays out.
6-6, give him a raise. I think he should be making more than John Shire at the basketball team. If that's the case, I mean, I'm just they have. I feel like Duke has pieces. You mentioned Mateo Durant at running back. I don't think they have enough pieces at all, but they have a couple good players and good talent. Shaka Hayward, as a linebacker for Duke last season was very good. So I mean, they have a couple talented players, but I don't see it working out for them as a collective this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that we need to say much more than that. If we do our show again here in a few weeks and Duke's 3-0 or 2-1 even, that will be good. So I think we can say that the next we'll say next best, because I think actually NC State's going to be decent this year. You want to talk about State, Bo?
Yeah, no, yeah, I do think that in the 919, they are a second best team in the 919, and that's no diss, that's not a negative or meant to be offensive, because I do think, like you said, they are going to be good. I think they will. I think they'll give Clemson a game this season. It's in Raleigh, I believe.
Yep.
NC State is healthy, as reports, if you believe reports coming into the season. First game is tomorrow, Thursday, or today if you're listening to it. It's on a Thursday, versus South Florida, who probably isn't that good this year. And their schedule, they always have to play Clemson. They always have to play Florida State, which they may or not be good this year. I think NC State will be second in the Atlantic this season, because they're healthy. They haven't been healthy in a couple of years. Dave Doran is a really good coach. He may not be the most the sexy coach or the most out there or enthusiastic, but he's a really good coach. They have really good talent. They have good players where they've recruited well the past couple of years, and they're best and they're really high on their quarterback, Devin Leary, who was again out last year after a game against Duke, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
But he showed really promising signs before getting hurt. They have Bam Knight, a really good running back who could push all ACC this year, and then really good defensive players too, defensive pieces. If I'm looking at their schedule, and like I said, I think they're going to push Clemson to the brink this year. I think Clemson always has that one game where they're on upset watch. And I think it's Clemson. I think it's NC State this year. They also have a sneaky game against Louisiana Tech, who is pretty good. I'm seeing up on Louisiana Tech's schedule now. Win versus UCF, that's a win.
At Mississippi State is their next game, and I think that's a really good game for State to schedule. It's an SEC opponent, but it's a comparable opponent, I would say. And I think they should win that game. I would expect them to be favored by like 3 or 3.5 in that game at Mississippi State, but I think they'll win that game. So they should be 3-0 going into the Clemson game on Saturday, September 25th. And that will probably be, if State's 3-0 at that point, depending on how they played, they might crack the top 25. So that'll be a potentially ranked matchup there that could have some national implications depending on how Clemson fares against Georgia this week.
So I see UCF a win, Mississippi State a win, which I agree should be a win for them, and I think is a really good measuring stick for one of those middle of the pack SEC teams, to see if NC State can be better than that and prove that they're better than that. At Mississippi State would be a huge win for them and for the conference. Furman's a win. Clemson, as I said before, is going to be close, but that's a loss. Louisiana Tech is a win. So they could be 5-1 going into the Miami game on December 23rd.
October 23rd.
October 23rd.
Yeah.
That's at Hard Rock. And again, that's another huge measuring stick for the NC State Wolfpack to, take another step up and to put all the good recruiting, all the pieces that Dave Doran's put together in Raleigh together, and getting over the hump and getting a huge win where they almost pulled it off last year against Miami, but couldn't quite get over that hump. But I at Miami, I'm saying that's a loss. 5-2. Louisville 6-2. At Florida State, that's coin flipping from me, but I'm going to say they win it 7-2. At Wake, who they always have trouble with, I'm going to say that's 8-2. I see 9-3 is very possible.
I think going through the schedule and just the history of NC State, I think it's more likely an 8-4, potentially 7-5 team. You know, I want to think that they beat Mississippi State, but I could see them losing that game. So I'm going to assume that they beat them, and you're right, 5-1 going into Miami. I have them losing that game, so that makes them 5-2. And then I see them beating Louisville, which puts them at 6-2, and then at Florida State. In Tallahassee, I think Mike Norvell is going to get things turned around, or at least moving in the right direction. We'll come back and revisit this pick here, but I have that as a loss for State. 6-3, losing at Wake Forest. Like you said, they never play well against Wake. That's always a close game. I mean, a couple years ago, they had a fumble at the goal line that would have sealed that win, and their receiver just dropped the ball inexplicably. So I don't trust them to win that game. I'm sorry, State fans. I love you, but State is down too many times. So I got them 6-4, beating Syracuse 7-4, and then Carolina at home. I think they'll win that game. I think they'll go all in, and right now I've got them 8-4 at the end of the season. But the thing to keep in mind too is, you know, Devin Leary got hurt last year. If he gets hurt again this year, I'm not sure what their quarterback room or what their quarterback depth chart looks like. If he gets hurt this year, and you can say this about a lot of teams, this could be a 6-6 team easily. So hopefully, you know, you want everyone to stay healthy. I think 8-4, 9-3 is definitely their ceiling. I don't see a 10-win season on the schedule for them, but 8-4, 9-3, that's a successful season for NC State.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I asked you about David Cutcliffe being on the hot seat, if anything worse than a 3-win, 4-win season. And it always seems like Dave Doran can always be on the hot seat in one season, after one season, you know, if they don't live up to expectations. And there are some expectations for NC State this year.
Yep.
And it always seems to also revolve around the UNC game. You know, there was several years ago where beating them in 2016 saved his job, and turned out to be a good move since then. There's been one bad season. I think that was 2 seasons ago, where it just didn't go well. But ever since then, they've been a solid team, bold team with a good talent, I think. But it always does come back if he goes to 7-5 or 6-6. Fans are going to question, you know, what the direction of this program is.
Yeah, unless this season is a complete disaster for State, I don't see him getting cut loose after this year. But if it is a 6-6 season, then I definitely think he'll be on the hot seat 2022. So,
but I think we're both pretty high on NC State this year.
Yeah.
I'm picking second in the Atlantic, and giving Clemson a run for their money in their game on September 25th. So you ready to move on to the Tar Heels?
I think so.
All righty. North Carolina Tar Heels, AP preseason ranked number 10, which is their highest ranking since 1997, Mac Brown's last year with the Tar Heels. And again, high expectations for UNC this season. And how about you'd start, Daniel, if you think they'll live up to those expectations?
Yeah, thanks, Beau. So I was looking at their schedule, and they have an interesting stretch. I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. They have 6 consecutive home games. So that's, that is a unique stretch, and it's also unique in the sense that they have 8 home games and then 4 road games. So I think they ought to do pretty well and live up to those expectations. Sam Howell's a great quarterback. I am so sorry that he did not stay committed to Florida State or Jimbo Fisher and go to Texas A&M, because I hate he seems like a really good guy, and I not being a Carolina fan, I hate to admit that, but I think he's going to do really, really well this year again. Dark horse Heisman. I don't even know if you would consider him dark horse. I think he's on a lot of folks' radar. Preseason ACC Player of the Year. Carolina has a lot of returning starters back on both sides of the ball, so generally that's an expectation that they've improved and gotten better. At least they're more experienced. Mac Brown has been recruiting well, so you've got the program is rolling in the right direction. So with the higher expectations, you've just got to. I think as a program, they just have to do a better job of handling those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
They've had high expectations and they have not always lived up to them. Last year they had a couple of letdown games at Florida State. That was a really, really bad loss. At Virginia was not a terrible loss, but still that's not a game that you think they should lose. And then of course they lost to Notre Dame when Notre Dame was ranked number 2. So that's not a bad loss, but that easily could have been more like a 1-loss season as opposed to a 3-loss season. So it's just going to be similar to NC State. Are they going to get tripped up in any of these, say, road games or road conference games? Because non-conference wise, I think they're going to be okay. They've got this non-conference series with Wake Forest, so they don't have a traditional non-conference opponent, and they're at Notre Dame this year. So going through and looking at this schedule, Beau, if I had to guess, like I said, I think they're going to lose to State at the end of the year. I see them losing at Notre Dame. I'm not sure. I guess last year it was in Chapel Hill, right? The game against Notre Dame was in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, it was it was in Chapel Hill.
Right. So I've got them at. I'm either going to say 9-3 or 10-2. I'm undecided. I've been waffling on this a little bit. I think at Virginia Tech, like first game of the year, could be one that trips them up. I think if they played this game the year, they would win. But being that it's the first game of the season, I think there's a chance. There's still shaking off the rust. The pieces of the puzzle are still fitting together. So I think that's – plus Virginia Tech's just a hostile environment. And the fans will be going crazy there. So I think that has the potential to be a loss. And if they do lose that game, then I see them at 9-3. If they win that game, I see them at 10-2, with the other losses coming at Notre Dame and at NC State. I just don't see them losing to Virginia at home, Georgia Tech at home, Duke at home, Florida State at home, and Miami at home. That's an unbelievably rare stretch to have all those ACC games back to back to back at home. And I think, that bodes well for them winning those games.
So I see just to make a correction, I do see an error on ESPN's website. The Georgia Tech game is away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
seven home games, 5 away games.
That is insane that they would have 6 straight home.
Yeah.
Who made the freaking schedule? But I would be that.
No, it is 5 out of those 6 games at home.
Okay, it says game played at a neutral location. I wonder if they're playing are they playing at the Falcons Stadium?
Not that I know of. Yeah. I mean, on the UNC website, it does say Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So yeah, I didn't realize that.
Where does it say?
Mercedes-Benz
Stadium? Oh, Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I find it hard to disagree with anything you've said. The only thing is I wouldn't automatically put at NC State as a loss. But it's interesting that you predict a 9-3 or at the worst with an NC State loss, which is I think at Virginia Tech and versus Florida State. So these are the 4 games I'm worried about: is Virginia Tech, Florida State, Miami, and Notre Dame. That 3-game stretch of Florida State, Miami, and Notre Dame worries me. Very lucky that Florida State and Miami are both at home. But I see out of those 4 games losing 2. NC State, I mean, yeah, NC State could very well be the third loss, but at Pitt on a Thursday night in November, seems like UNC always has to play Pitt on a Thursday night in November, at Pitt, no less, and in cold Pittsburgh weather, the winds. And they have UVA as always and Florida State, 2 of the teams that they lost to last year, like you said, that they shouldn't have. That Florida State game, they were number 5 in the nation, clearly proved that they weren't quite ready for that high of national prominence. I think if they beat Virginia Tech on this upcoming Friday, they'll be 10-2.
Yeah, I agree.
And then that pretty much has them, I think, playing for a Coastal or for the ACC championship. But returning starters, of course, they had the quarterback, Sam Howell, losing a lot of production, wide receivers and running backs. It would be interesting to see if they'll and there's no way they're going to be able to replace that or be able to cover the production that the wide receivers and running backs had from a season ago. But if they can be close, put up a good amount of points each game and let the defense really be the strong point. I think if the defense is the strong point of UNC this season, then they can do really good things.
Yeah, that would be really funny if UNC's defense is the strong point because, at least in the past decade, I would say that's been their Achilles heel.
Yeah.
They could score 40, but they might give up 50.
No, you're right. Big plays and running quarterbacks has really been the Achilles heel of UNC, and they'll definitely run up. They'll come up against some. In the schedule, Virginia Tech, Burmeister, I believe his name is a running quarterback. Florida State, we're not too sure who will be their quarterback, but they usually have last season, the Travis, I forget his first name, absolutely ate UNC up on the ground. Miami with De'Aaron King, good quarterback and good running quarterback as well. So, there's teams on here that can really hurt them from their past weaknesses, and there's teams on here that can also show if UNC is really turning the corner and can be part of that, national discussion. But yeah, 10-2 is where I'm sticking my colors to the mast, and playing for the ACC championship.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good prediction. The schedule works out really well for that too. In mentioning the Georgia Tech game in Atlanta, I would be willing to bet that there will be more Carolina fans at that game than Georgia Tech fans. Georgia Tech fans, I don't know, they don't travel, so it's not like they'll have to travel at all, but it's not a home game per se. So
yeah, they don't have to get out of their dorm room, or they have to get further than their campus. Yeah,
right. And there seems to be a lot of Carolina alumni in the Atlanta area. They seem to always show up to stuff in Atlanta. So definitely a favorable schedule. But transitioning off, I think it's clear cut this year that it's Carolina's in the state. It's probably Carolina. Excuse me, it's the best team in the state. And then I'd say Wake and NC State. We don't really talk about Wake much, but I'd say Wake and NC State are probably pretty close. Wake always outperforms the talent that they have. Generally they're not getting like 4-star recruits, but they have played really well. They're well coached. But I think State probably has more talent. So I'll put them a notch above. So State and Wake right there close, and then Duke down a bit. So it's, hopefully Duke can get their way up to the level that Wake and State are playing on now. But overall, pretty positive outlook for the teams in North Carolina. App State, Charlotte should probably be pretty good. ECU, I think it's probably going to be another struggle this year, but keeping it focused on the ACC schools, I think overall positive year aside from potentially Duke. So, Beau, we want to broaden the scope here. We love talking about the 919 schools, but looking ahead to college football at large, let's make a couple predictions about who we think are going to win the Power Five conferences. So instead of let's start west to east. So we always talk about the SEC. It seems like a lot, and the ACC. So let's start west to east and work our way from the Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, and then we'll finish up in the ACC. So Pac-12, you don't have to give me too much in depth. Like overall, who do you see winning the Pac-12?
Well, I think the Pac-12 is going to be pretty cut and dry this year. I think Oregon's going to be very good. I think Oregon will push for the college football playoff this season. And I think that they'll win the Pac-12 by beating UCLA from the South.
Yeah, I'm high on UCLA too. So I'm glad you feel that way as well. So you've got some consistency there. Yeah, I think Oregon plays UCLA in the conference championship game and wins that. We'll save our college football playoff picks here, Beau. For
okay.
So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but yeah, I agree. Oregon over UCLA in the Pac-12. Who do you have in the Big 12?
Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are still in it, right?
as of right now, as of September 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern, they are still
as of time of recording.
Yes.
So again, I think Oklahoma's going to win the Big 12. They're preseason number 2. I think it's pretty chalk there. When do they play Iowa State? Iowa State is going to be, I think, a little overrated. I don't think they're going to finish top 10. I think Matt Campbell's done a really good job with Iowa State, but I think that Oklahoma probably plays them twice, regular season and conference championship. Yeah, Oklahoma.
Yep, I agree. You're right, Beau. I think we're kind of chalk on this one. I don't see anybody in the Big 12 keeping up with Oklahoma's offense, and I think their defense is actually going to be a little bit better this year. They were improved last year from where they were 2 years ago, and I think they're going to continue to get better. I just don't see – I tend to agree. I think Iowa State might be a little bit overhyped here. I think they're going to be a very good football team, but it'll just be interesting to see if they live up to those expectations. It's always interesting to see the schools that are not traditionally at the top of the rankings when they have lofty preseason expectations to see if they live up to those. So, yeah, Oklahoma over Iowa State in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. All right, bring us to the Big 10. We've already had one Big 10 game. I don't know if you got any eyes on that. Did you watch Illinois versus Nebraska?
I did, and Beau, I don't know. I think you know that I like Nebraska. My sister and I went to Omaha for the college in 2017, and we drove to Lincoln one day and got to check out the stadium, and it was really neat. So, I hold Nebraska near and dear to my heart. I thought Scott Frost was a great hire. I thought they were going to turn things around finally, but he has just been pathetic. And that is a brutal assessment, but golly, I didn't watch any of the Nebraska Illinois game, but I went back and watched some of the highlights. I mean, they were just shooting themselves in the foot, and that's just been the theme of the Scott Frost era in Nebraska. So I don't know. And I think he could be gone after this year. Nebraska has high expectations regardless of whether, they can actually meet those expectations. But, they got to look at a school like Iowa State and see Iowa State's in the top 10 and winning games, and Nebraska can't beat Illinois. I think Big Red's, the boosters there, Big Red got to be getting a little antsy. So we'll see.
No, I completely agree.
It's insane.
I take more comedy and pleasure with Nebraska's demise more than you. I don't see why Nebraska one was ever any good. Like, why would anyone have wanted to go to Nebraska and play? But they were good historically. I feel like sometimes Nebraska may think that they're entitled to be good still. or just inherently should be a bowl team every single year. Things have changed. I think other teams have surpassed them in the national spotlight, and yeah, I don't see how that team can be. I think Nebraska can potentially be like an Iowa or a Michigan State on their good years. Yeah, I think that's should be Nebraska's ceiling or
Yeah,
Nebraska's sights. But
that's exactly right. Yeah, their ceiling is like Iowa, Michigan State, or even Wisconsin. You know, Wisconsin's got their they never get these big time recruits, but they're always really well coached. They're fundamentally sound. They play good defense, and they win a lot of games. Now they don't ever beat Ohio State. They generally, you know, when they play these teams that have these really good athletes that spread the ball out and throw it around, it's hard for them to keep up. But hey, I think Nebraska fans would kill to beat Wisconsin right about now. So
yeah.
yeah, I agree.
So I mean, the winner of the Big Ten is going to be Ohio State. You know, they're just loaded, like they are pretty much every year. Sorry, Michigan fans, it's going to be another year of y'all losing to them. And yeah, I mean, and Harbaugh out after this year is my prediction.
Yeah, you're gonna have some people from Michigan and Nebraska coming after you, dude. So you better watch if you get any like packages or something from Michigan or Nebraska.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah, Ohio State clearly is head and shoulders above everybody else in the Big Ten. If I had to bet, I think they'll play Wisconsin in the conference championship game. I think Wisconsin will be pretty solid again this year. And of course, they just won't quite be able to keep up with Ohio State. So I've got Ohio State winning the Big Ten. I think the one conference where there's actually question marks, and that might change a little bit when we talk about the ACC, but the one conference where there could be a non-chalk situation is the SEC. Who do you have winning the SEC, and more importantly, who do you have playing in that championship game?
Well, I'd be interested to hear which side you're saying is not chalk.
Yeah, or maybe I'm being crazy for saying that it might not be chalk.
From the East or the West, you know, we always talk about how competitive the SEC is and how good the teams are, but it seems like, I mean, I know we had LSU win 2 years ago. That was one of the greatest teams that we've ever seen on a college football field. But I have Alabama winning the West is mostly as per usual. And then, I mean, I do think if I were to go non-chalk, it'd be Florida beating Georgia, but I don't see it this year. I think Alabama and Georgia and Alabama winning.
Yeah, I agree. I think Georgia wins. I think Florida just lost a little bit too much. You know, Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts were huge for their offense. I do think Dan Mullen is a good coach, so I'm sure he'll have them running and gunning. But I just think Georgia with JT Daniels back at quarterback, they're going to be able to put up some more points this year. And, of course, they'll play good defense. West, unless Bryce Young gets hurt, I think Alabama will win. If Bryce Young gets hurt and misses time, that will be interesting because I don't know who the backup quarterback at Bama is. It's
probably just another 5-star, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean that's true, but God, they won't have any experience, so they've had to replace a ton of people on offense. I know we go through the same minutia every year with Alabama. You know, they have a lot to replace on defense, on offense. The coaching staff is turned over, but somehow they continue to win. So I don't think we can say anything about Alabama potentially not winning the West unless they get hit with some injuries on offense. So, and then I could see Texas A&M beating them. I could see them losing to Ole Miss. Their over-under win total for the season is 11.5. So, you know, Vegas has them looking at going undefeated. You know, so even if they go 11-1, get tripped up by Lane Kiffin, Jimbo Fisher, something like that, yeah, it's just so tough to go undefeated, especially in the SEC. But yeah, I think Bama, Georgia, and of course Nick Saban's never lost to any of his former assistants, so you got to pick Bama there. But all right, ACC, Beau, Clemson, Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, you got to
Cutting
take
to the
Clemson.
chase. Yeah.
Cut to the chase, Clemson. If anything, if anyone has anything other to say about it, it's Miami. Miami over UNC would be the other, I guess, more popular pick would be Miami and Clemson in the ACC championship game. I think it's going to be UNC and Clemson in the championship game this year. If UNC doesn't make the ACC championship game, I think that's a bad year. And if Clemson, obviously, if they don't make the ACC championship game, there's been the apocalypse or something like that has happened.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Clemson over UNC or Clemson over Miami, either one. But Clemson, I don't think goes undefeated.
Yeah, I could see them definitely losing. That's kind of been their trademark.
And
So,
especially this upcoming Saturday, Georgia.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's almost like a national championship game right there.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, when you're looking at if you have one loss and it's Georgia, and then Clemson's playing an ACC schedule with South Carolina, who's awful. Yeah, I think it would be hard for them to, unless UNC and Miami are ranked highly, then it'd be hard for them to go to the college football playoff.
Yeah, get a ranked state team. No, and if Clemson loses to Georgia, as long as they don't get blown out and then they run through the rest of the schedule, they're not going to keep them out. I mean, they've had worse losses. You know, they lost to who was it? Syracuse a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
I just because they passed the eye test. You know, just like Ohio State last year, won 5 games, passed the eye test.
Yeah.
I just don't think they'll keep Clemson out, even if they lose to Georgia and then just run through the rest of the schedule. But I agree, Clemson, Carolina in the ACC championship game, Clemson winning that game. I think it'll be close, but yeah, it's hard to pick against Clemson right now. So we've gone through the conferences, Final Four, college football playoff. Who you got?
So I don't think the SEC gets two teams. I think Alabama will be the number 1 seed. I think Oklahoma will be the number 2 seed. I think Clemson, and I mean, I hate to just be chalk and boring like that, but Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and then
Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah.
Yeah, it pains me to say that too, but really I was looking at it and those are the 4 teams that I have to pick as well. And I'm picking not with my heart, but with my head, right? You know, that's what I think is going to happen. I think there's 2 dark horse candidates that could make the college football playoff that I think have a decent chance of making it. One, and they're not dark horse, but they're just not the traditional 4. One is Georgia. If Georgia goes undefeated and loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game, I could still see them getting in.
Yeah, they're in.
And then the other one is Notre Dame. If you look at Notre Dame's schedule, it's really not that bad. They've got some challenging games, but they're all at home, aside from Wisconsin, which is at a neutral site game. So Wisconsin and Chicago, and then Cincinnati. That'll be a good game, but I think they'll win both of those. Then they've got USC at home and Carolina at home. So all of their challenging games are at home. And then their road games are at Florida State, at Virginia Tech, at Virginia, and at Stanford. So going out west, of course, is always tricky, but I don't think Stanford's that good. And then Florida State could catch them week 1. But I think they have a decent chance of going undefeated, and probably against this schedule, they'll need to be undefeated to get into the college football playoff. But I could see Notre Dame winning out and getting in. And, I mean, the college football playoff TV people would love to have Notre Dame in because there's some good ratings for you right there. But.
Yeah. I think if anyone's a dark horse to kind of break up those traditional 4 or 5, it's Oregon. I mentioned them briefly when we were talking about the Pac-12. But if anyone's going to break it up and get in there, it's Oregon. You know, whether that means they're going to play Alabama first game and then get throttled, probably. But that's what everyone does to Alabama with Alabama, is what it seems like. So Oregon, I think Oregon has a shot. just because of the schedule that they play. They do play, I think isn't it Oregon and Ohio State?
Yes.
Yeah, first or second weekend. I mean, and if Oregon can be close with Ohio State or even beat them, if they beat them, then and they run the table, then obviously they're definitely in. Second week, yeah, at Ohio State.
Yeah,
They win
okay.
that. If they win that, then they're top 3 team.
I think the thing though is if they lose that game badly, and even if they still win out, I don't think they'll get in because the Pac-12 just doesn't get they don't get the benefit of the doubt. So if they get blown out by Ohio State, I don't see them getting in, even if they win out and win the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just how it always seems to be with the Pac-12, and I'd love to see some different stories. We're seeing a lot on this podcast where it always seems like it usually is like this, but I'd love to see some different teams in there. I think I said that last year, we're doing our first pod of the season, trying to see some different teams, and lo and behold, who did we see? We saw Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. I guess they're a little different in Ohio State.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I got if I were to put money on it, you had to put money on Alabama. Maybe they're not good value. I think Ohio State would also be my second team that I would put money on.
Yep, I agree. I think Bama and Ohio State are probably the closest thing to a lock, and then followed by Clemson and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to go away from those 4 teams right there.
Yeah.
Well, Beau, it's been, I swear these hours fly by, but we're about at an hour, if not just past it. So We're going to wind things down a little bit. Do you have anything to plug? Of course, we are members of the College Football Researchers Association. So check out CFRA poll, CFRApoll.com is an NCAA recognized poll. So go ahead and check that out. We do a preseason poll, a midseason poll, end of regular season, and after the national championship game, so postseason poll. And we crown a champion. So give that site a view, check that out, and of course, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Beau, anything else?
No, nothing to plug on my end, unless I've missed some emails from the advertisers from the marketing department that we have here at the 919 College Football Podcast. Nothing to plug. Excited for the season. Can't believe it starts tomorrow, especially 919 team starting off tomorrow, and all the 919 teams will be done by Friday, by the end of Friday, and which is good. We're either going to be really upset. Some of us might be really upset sitting back and watching the games on Saturday, or we're just going to be really happy, relaxed, and just enjoying some college football on Saturday and Sunday. Visit Notre Dame and Florida State on Sunday.
Yeah, normally week 1 they have a Sunday night game because there's no NFL. So
that's right. Yep.
That's right, Beau. This, I guess we'll get a good taste of how the 919 teams are looking after Thursday and Friday. So anyways, fingers crossed. Wish them all the best. Beau, of course, it was a pleasure as always. Thanks for joining, and we'll see everybody here soon. We don't have a set schedule, but of course we will get back on real soon.
Yep, looking forward to the next time, and we'll see how the 919 teams fare between now and then to see if any of our predictions and our ideas come to fruition, or if we'll be completely wrong. I'm never usually wrong. I'll have to go back and listen to the last podcast that we have and see if I've ever been wrong.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
All right, man.
All right. Yep. It's good talking to you. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good.